On today's show, we'll give you our winners and losers of Week 10 in the SEC, who impressed and depressed. Bama got a scare from LSU. Georgia, not so much of a scare from Mizzou. Big home wins for Arkansas, A&M, and South Carolina. And the Vols with a nice road win over Kentucky. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. Let's jump into it. Let's get to our winners of the weekend.
And now, your winners of the weekend.
Real winners win.
You know you looking at a winner, because I'm a winner, yeah, I'm a winner.
All right, let's jump into it. A lot of defensive love this week. We start, as we always do, with the Georgia defense. When we heard prior to this one that Mizzou quarterback Connor Bazelak was going to be out, the point spread had moved by that time to Georgia favored by 40. And Missouri freshman quarterback Tyler Macon, he was able to make some plays early with his arm and his legs. Tyler Beatty had some hard rushing yards, but at the end of the day, the Georgia defense yet again came up with a big goal line stand late and yet again did not allow an opposing touchdown. I don't think that can be overstated enough. We are this point in the season and they haven't given up a touchdown. They got a 43-6 victory on paper. You see the Georgia D had just 2 sacks, didn't force any turnovers. Missouri was 6 for 17 on third downs, 2 for 4 on fourth downs. But the scoreboard is what matters most. And that Georgia defense is just so stingy. They remind you a lot of those Bama defenses in recent years where they just don't allow you to score. They keep you out of their end zone. They make you settle for field goals. Georgia just didn't seem to miss linebacker Adam Anderson, who remains suspended amid that rape allegation, and his return remains iffy and unclear, and certainly something to keep an eye on moving forward. But Georgia still number 1 in total defense. 10 weeks into the season, allowing a measly 6.6 points per game and 230 yards of offense per game. Next up, they will get a road trip to Knoxville against an improved Tennessee team. Next up in our winners of the weekend, how about the Texas A&M defense? I gave you the disclaimer last week that A&M, since beating Alabama, had been on a roll, but their most recent wins have been over Missouri and South Carolina. So now they had a true test with 13th ranked Auburn coming into College Station. And Mike Elko's group had a fantastic day, holding Auburn to 226 total yards and a monster sack on Bo Nix in the fourth quarter that resulted in a fumble return for a touchdown to really pad their lead and took Auburn out of the game. They picked off Nix in the final minute. Senior D lineman Tyree Johnson, he has been on a tear. He had 2 sacks this week against Auburn, 2 last game against South Carolina, a sack against Mizzou, 2 sacks against Bama. That's 7 sacks in his last 4 games. He is just another huge piece of a D-line that gets after it. Jaden Peavy had a sack. Damani Richardson had one. They held Auburn to just 4 for 16 on third downs. And now the Aggies on a 4-game win streak, 7-2 overall, 4-2 in the SEC. They will be rooting hard for Auburn in the Iron Bowl in a couple weeks. A&M still with a possible chance to win the West and get to Atlanta. Our next winner of the weekend, how about the LSU defense? Now, look, it's a little weird to put a team in the winner category that actually lost the game, but who saw that coming from the LSU defense? Here's the deal. LSU was a 29-point underdog in Tuscaloosa, according to BetOnline. They had a coach who's already been fired in Ed Ogeron. You have a team that was missing dozens, and I mean dozens, of starters and backups and highly recruited players. And that team came out more focused and more ready to play than number 2 Alabama. And that LSU defense gave them every chance to try to win that game on Saturday night. Alabama was able to hang on for the 20-14 win. But at the end, it was weird. LSU fans were patting themselves on the back going, man, that felt good. Alabama fans were the ones looking around going, what the hell's wrong with our team? Now, look, Bryce Young made some throws. He finished with over 300 yards passing on the day. But the Alabama run game, non-existent. Brian Robinson Jr. held to 13 carries for just 18 yards. He did punch in a touchdown. And Jameson Williams was a stud, 160 receiving yards on the score. But LSU on Bryce Young in their house, 4 sacks, 8 tackles for a loss, 4 passes defensed, and the likes of Dwight McGlothern, Raydarius Jones, Darren Evans, they came up big at times for LSU defensively, holding Bama to just 4 for 13 on third downs, 0 for 1 on fourth down, and LSU snapped Bama's 34 straight game streak of scoring 30 or more points in a game. It's the first time they scored less than 30 in a game since 2018. Now, look, Bama certainly made their mistakes. 9 penalties for 64 yards. Bryce Young lost a fumble. They had a missed field goal. But I can't say enough about LSU on a night where nobody was giving them a chance. And I mean nobody. Their defense showed up, played their butts off. And look, if they'd have just made a couple more plays offensively, LSU probably could have pulled off this upset. Another winner of the weekend, I'm going with KJ Jefferson from Arkansas. Let's be real. His numbers overall were not that glamorous. If you just look at the box score, 191 yards, 1 touchdown, only 14 rushing yards. But when his team needed it most, KJ Jefferson made the plays. Down 5 with 2 minutes to go. Jefferson led Arkansas down the field, 6 completions on that final drive, taking the team down to the 9. He then had a 5-yard run down to the 4, setting up a Dominique Johnson go-ahead rushing touchdown. Again, not the prettiest of days for KJ Jefferson, but man, he showed up when his team needed him most, and he delivered. And Arkansas is now 6-3 on the season, and they are going to a bowl game. Congrats to Coach Sam Pittman and his staff. Arkansas Razorbacks. It was a brutal schedule. We knew coming in they had the number 1 toughest schedule in the country, but a big win for them. Another winner of the weekend, South Carolina run game. Where are you at? A lot of talk about Florida's struggles. And look, we'll get to them in a bit, but how about a little credit to the South Carolina run game? 42 carries for over 280 rushing yards. A vintage Kevin Harris day. We've been looking for him all season. Here he is. 16 carries, 128 yards for Kevin Harris. Zaquandre White had 111 rushing. Marshawn Lloyd had 46 on the ground. That looked more like the South Carolina run game we saw all last season. So congrats to Shane Beamer and his staff in routing Florida 40-17. The Gamecocks, they improved to 5-4 on the year, just 1 win away from becoming bowl eligible, and they could get it this weekend with a win up at Missouri. Congrats to South Carolina. Another winner of the weekend, how about Josh Heupel and the Vols? Heupel has brought a fun brand of offense to Rocky Top. And as I told you guys in the preseason, the Vols may still lose games, but at least they will be more entertaining with Heupel running the show. Unlike watching Garantano, Chaney, Pruitt, Heupel is not only calling a fun brand of offense, but the Vols are now 5-4 in the season, 3-3 in the conference. And they got games to finish off the year against South Alabama and Vandy, so that should get them to 7 wins. Now, this week, they're going to host number 1 Georgia, and nobody's going to give them a chance. But could Hendon Hooker and the Vol offense make it at least competitive? Probably not, but heck, the Vols, they're already playing with house money, so it'll be a fun one to watch. It really was crazy, though, this game against Kentucky. Tennessee only ran 47 plays. Kentucky ran 99. The Wildcats dominated time of possession, 46-14. Each team only punted once. It was a crazy game. But credit the big strike, big play offense from Josh Heupel, his crew digging deep and getting the victory. And there you have it. Those are our winners of the weekend. When we return, we'll give you our Who Depressed from Week 10 in the SEC. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Need to remind you about our friends over at PrizePicks. This is for all the college football fanatics out there who you've heard about PrizePicks, but you haven't tried them yet. Go do it now. Download the app. Go to their website. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. I love it. I know you guys are going to love it as well. They are a leader in college sports daily fantasy. They offer more college football props than anybody else out there. It is really cool to do. I did it this past weekend. You go on the app, you've got tons of different props you can choose from. You pick 2 to 5 players, the over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you against the projected numbers. They allow even mixed sports entries. If you want to do over-under turnovers for a certain player in the NBA versus college football, you could do that. Use their award-winning app. You can find it on both the App Store and on Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. And PrizePicks, they always offer safe and fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate right now. Check out PrizePicks.com. Make sure you use our promo code LOCKEDON and go to the App Store, download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. PrizePicks, go check them out right now. Right along here, Locked On SEC. We gave you our winners of the weekend. So now let's jump into it. Let's give you our who depressed on the weekend. And we start in Gainesville. Dan Mullen. It is officially panic time in Gainesville. All the headlines last week with Dan Mullen, the Gators, shutting out the media from talking to players, not allowing some of their assistants to talk to the media. And things only got worse on the field. The Gators lost to South Carolina Saturday night, 40-17, against a team that has nowhere near the talent on the field the Gators have. And you can officially say Dan Mullen has lost his team. Anthony Richardson, he didn't play in this one, dealing with a concussion. Emory Jones, who we really wanted to see you to take that step forward this year. Kyle Trask, the guy last year. Emory Jones learned it behind him. And Emory Jones largely inconsistent, completing barely 50% of his passes on Saturday. He threw a pick, lost a fumble that was returned for a score. No rushing game to speak of for the Gators. 26 carries for just 82 yards. And Florida, big bad Florida, now 4-5 on the season, 2-5 in the SEC, and just 1 year removed from winning the SEC East, finally getting to Atlanta under Mullen. His program is taking a monster step backward. They do still have a chance to win their last 3 games. They play Samford, Mizzou, and Florida State. But right now, none of those are given. I mean, a few weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, they're going to win all 3 of those games. Would finishing 7-5 save Mullen's future in Gainesville? We will see. But definitely not happy if you were a fan of the Florida Gators right now. Another depressed of the weekend. I'm going with Bo Nix and the Auburn offense. I talked all last week about how impressed I was with Bo Nix in recent weeks. We were getting good Bo Nix. Well, bad Bo Nix showed up in College Station on Saturday. It wasn't all his fault, but 20 for 41 passing, 153 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, 2 fumbles, including a big one that was returned for a score at the start of the 4th quarter. It's not all on Nix. The O-line really struggled to block that Texas A&M pass rush. Nix was sacked 4 times, hit 5 more times. He had been sacked just 9 times coming into Saturday. It was a big gut punch for Auburn Defense, who were holding out hope that they could beat Bama in the Iron Bowl and still get to Atlanta. Nix's receivers didn't help him much either. They had some drops. It was his 4th game this season where he did not record a touchdown. He's now thrown for 100 yards, 144 yards, and 153 yards in his 3 games against Texas A&M. I don't know what it is. They're his kryptonite, it seems like. Does not perform well against them. But not many good quarterbacks in college football with as many games played as Bo Nix, having games without even a passing or rushing touchdown for their team 4 times in a season. Bo Nix, 9 touchdown passes on the year, 3 interceptions, does have 4 rushing touchdowns. But with their games remaining, you get Mississippi State at South Carolina and home for Bama in the Iron Bowl. You have to wonder if some over on the Plains may be asking to see a little bit more of TJ Finley. Saw a little bit of him earlier this year. He was inconsistent as well. Of course, got them the come from behind win a couple weeks ago. But I think you stick with Bo Nix. But man, very disappointing. He's got to step up and play better in these final 3 games for Auburn. Another depressed of the weekend, the Mississippi State kickers, man. 0 for 3 on field goals in a game where you lose by just 3 points. Absolutely brutal. Brandon Ruiz, he misses 2. Nolan McCord misses 1, and the Bulldogs fall at Arkansas 31-28. Razorbacks took the lead with under 30 seconds to go. Will Rogers, he hits a couple of big pass plays, gets State down to the Arkansas 22, and here comes McCord, who misses a 40-yarder as time expires, and the Razorbacks survive. State drops to 5-4 on the season, 3-3 in the conference, and after a big win just a week ago against Kentucky, the air kind of comes out of the balloon for Mike Leach and company with the loss to Arkansas this past week. Another depressed of the weekend, hear me out here because it's a little bit of a stretch, and I don't want to be nitpicky, but Stetson Bennett has done a really good job running the Georgia offense the past few weeks. Played pretty well against Mizzou, but I'm putting JT Daniels in my depressed category, and here's why. JT has missed week after week after week dealing with an injury. Finally heard this past week JT Daniels healthy enough to play, and we finally got to see him in some game action in the second half. A little rusty. With Georgia leading 33-3, JT Daniels takes over, leads the team down the field on a touchdown drive, caps it off with a 7-yard touchdown pass to McConkey. On the ensuing drive, Daniels comes back out to run the offense. They're moving the ball, throws the ball behind McConkey, was tipped up into the air, intercepted by Jalen Carlisle from Missouri. Daniels' numbers weren't all that bad, but the reason I put him in the depressed category this week, I don't think he gets his starting job back. I think this is Stetson Bennett's job the rest of the season. Forget recruiting rankings, forget highly touted transfer from USC, forget all that stuff. Stetson Bennett is the better quarterback right now. Not to say JT Daniels can't get better with more practices under him and all that. I just think Georgia's best chance to win down the stretch of the season is with Stetson Bennett. He's proven himself. By no means is he going to be in the Heisman conversation and throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. Stetson Bennett gets the job done. So JT Daniels, they'll probably play both of them. He'll probably come in and still play some, but I think Stetson Bennett is the starter for Georgia the rest of the year. Another depressed of the weekend. How about the Kentucky defense? Really looked impressive at times earlier this season, holding Florida to just 13 points, South Carolina to just 10 points, stomping all over LSU. But the last 3 games have been brutal for the Wildcats. They gave up 30 to Georgia, 31 to Mississippi State, and then 45 in a loss to Tennessee this past weekend. Kentucky's offense did wake up this past week, but in a shootout in Lexington with the Vols, Kentucky defense allowed big play after big play to break. A 75-yard pass to Javonte Payton to start the game. A 72-yard pass to Velus Jones. It was just an ugly performance from a group that we were once so high on. And now Mark Stoops' group has gone from 6-0 undefeated to now losing 3 straight. They got a chance to regroup and finish strong with Vanderbilt, New Mexico, and Louisville. Let's see if they can win their last 3. And lastly, my last depressed of the weekend, I'm going with Eli Drinkwitz. Eli's time in the SEC may not be for long. The Tigers were routed by Georgia 43-6, and everybody loses to Georgia. But they gave up over 500 yards of offense to the Bulldogs, and Mizzou drops to 4-5 on the year, 1-4 in the SEC. They got games left against South Carolina, Florida, and at Arkansas. Drinkwitz would have to win 2 of 3 just to make a bowl game. Does not look likely at this point. And you just wonder, in his 2 seasons at Mizzou, he is 9-10 overall. Not what Missouri fans want. Drinkwitz in the midst of a 6-year, $24 million contract. He's making $4 million a year and possibly going to miss a bowl game this year. Would Mizzou be ready to pull the plug on him this quick? We will see. And there you have it. Those are our depressed from the weekend. When we return, give you some of our honorable mentions of the weekend. And thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Quick minute here for our friends at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. Look, if you guys haven't tried a Built Bar by now, you are just frankly missing out. It's a protein bar, but it doesn't taste like a protein bar. It tastes frankly like you're eating a candy bar, and that is just awesome. Built Bars are soft, covered in 100% real chocolate. When you bite into it, you know you're eating something different. Built Bars, low in calorie, low in carbs, low in fat, low in sugar, high in protein. All the healthy benefits on top of just being purely delicious. And they got tons of different flavors, something for everybody. You got the raspberry, the coconut, the double chocolate, salted caramel, the mint brownie, which is my favorite. If you go to their website right now, built.com, you can even try a mixed box where you get 2 of each of the flavors, get to try them all. And this month, Built is coming out with a new limited time flavor every 3 to 4 days. So if you check their website often, you don't want to miss out. You'll see some of those limited time flavors. Just go to built.com right now. Make sure you use our promo code LOCKED15. If you've never ordered from them before, you get 15% off your order. Use our promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off over at built.com. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC. We get to our honorable mentions of the weekend. This is some people who maybe weren't great enough to be in the winners category, but still deserve some recognition. So let's jump into it. And we start with the Auburn defense. I got to give the Auburn defense a little bit of credit. They held Texas A&M to just 3 points in the first half, a total of 6 points through 3 quarters. Derek Mason's crew came ready to play. They had a good game plan. They kept Zach Calzada off balance, held the Aggies to just 3 for 13 on third downs, less than 200 yards passing. Now, A&M was able to get something going on the ground rushing eventually, but Smoke Monday, he led the team with tackles with 9. Roger McCreary recovered a fumble. Auburn's defense played well enough to win. Unfortunately, the offense wasn't good enough. As we told you, Bo Nix, disappointing, and Auburn lost the game 20-3. That was a game, though, they could have won. Defense was good enough. Offense was not. Another honorable mention of the week, I got Matt Corral. Ole Miss got a win over Liberty, 27-14. Kind of an early morning sleeper as the Rebels. They jumped out to a 24-0 halftime lead. And Corral did not set the world on fire, but it was a nice week for him. 20 for 27, 324 yards, 1 touchdown. And Corral may not be atop the Heisman watch list currently, but he is having a really nice season. He's thrown for over 2,500 yards, 16 touchdown passes, only 2 interceptions. Remember, he had the INT problem a year ago. And then also on the ground, he's got over 500 rushing yards with 10 rushing touchdowns. It's a really solid statistical season for Matt Corral and the Lane Kiffin offense. And look, I think he'll keep his name in the Heisman conversation. It just sucks he's not going to get the chance with an exclamation point win down the stretch of the season to really vault his name on the Heisman list. Another honorable mention of the week, I'm going with Will Anderson, linebacker from Alabama. This guy is an absolute stud for the Tide. It's a defense already loaded with talent, and he is the heartbeat. This week against LSU, he did everything he could to help the Tide get a victory. He led the team with 12 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss. Will Anderson was everywhere, making big plays against that LSU offense and helping them get the win. And Will Anderson now has got 10 sacks on the season. That is tied for second most in the country. Definitely keep Will Anderson's name in the conversation for possibly SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Another honorable mention of the week, I'm going with Avery Atkins. And who the heck is Avery Atkins? He is LSU's punter. Made a big pass early in the game at Alabama, running a fake punt, hitting tight end Jack Mashburn for a 26-yard pass play. Now, here's the deal. No offense to quarterback Max Johnson, but if you looked at the box score at halftime between LSU and Alabama, Avery Atkins was LSU's leading passer at halftime. That's how big that 26-yard pass play was. He also had 5 punts in this game for over 200 yards. An average of over 40 yards a punt. He had a long of 53 yards. Avery Atkins was a big part of keeping LSU in the game with Alabama. So shout out to him. He gets an honorable mention. And there you have it. Those are honorable mentions of the week as we cap off week 10 in the SEC. It was a good weekend of football. Really fun games to watch. The Tennessee-Kentucky game turned out to be entertaining. We kind of thought it would be, but LSU, Alabama, way more entertaining than anybody else thought. Mississippi State, Arkansas lived up to the hype. Auburn, A&M, look, if you like good defense, you enjoyed that one. Wasn't as aesthetically pleasing, but man, we had some great games, and Ole Miss took care of business against Liberty. So some great performances in week 10 of the SEC. Can't wait to start to turn the page. You look ahead to the weekend slate of week 11 in the SEC. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen. Check out some of our other great podcasts along the Locked On network, including Locked On Vols, Locked On LSU, Locked On Bama, Locked On Bulldogs. Tons of great ones out there covering just about any SEC school you're looking to hear. I am Chris Gordy. This is Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here.